Hey mamas, it's Mama Fox. It's 10 a.m. Central on Wednesday, October 23rd. It's a great day. And it's a great day to talk about my missing neck fat. Yet again, another 2024 bingo card item that I did not see coming. It was not on my bingo card. It was on somebody else's, but here it is. Honestly, though, as crazy and funny as it sounds, my missing neck fat, my neck fat was really on my mind a lot since last, I'd say probably August, September 2023. So a little over a year ago now, definitely over a year ago now. And it was like, it's one of those things where I just kind of looked in the mirror one day, last early fall, over a year ago, and I was like, what? Where did that come from? Just hadn't noticed it or something. I don't know. I'm very blind. So a lot of times when I'm standing in front of the mirror, I don't always have my glasses on. I'm like really blind, y'all. It's bad. Like really bad. But I just remember thinking, and I did turn 50 in January, but this was before that. This was in the fall, early fall. And I was like, really? What the pooks? And for those of y'all that don't know, the What the Pooks, that came from our black and white tuxedo cat that's no longer with us. That cat was dumb. Sweet, pretty kitty, but had these big old round eyes. You know how like our cat now has those beautiful like cat eyes. No, this one was just oink. She was goofy. But anyway, so we say What the Pooks. I don't know why. It came from the cat somehow. So I don't know. My neck fat was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back. And I don't know if y'all have ever had a moment like that where you're like, oh, all right, I've had it up to here. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. That was the catalyst for the changes I've been making in 2024. That one right there was like, oh no. Now, I'll be honest though, back in September, October, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do differently. I was just frustrated, discouraged, disappointed, upset, annoyed, I was a little mad. just a little mad, not like too much, but really like, okay. And so by October, I was like, okay, I gotta do something different, but I don't know what to do. And I have never, and I hope some of y'all are like this, but let's stop that, okay? I have never been someone who will just do like, take this or eat that or do this and, in 2 weeks, you'll be in a bikini. Like, I don't do that stuff. I mean, that doesn't work in the long term anyway, but I've never been the kind of person that will jump on some kind of bandwagon. I just don't do that. Like, I'm like, there is no quick fix. Okay? Y'all know that deep in your heart. There is no quick fix. There is no magic pill, magic potion, magic button. There isn't. So I knew that. And so therefore I was like, okay, I don't want to lose the neck fat and have it come back. For sure not. But I do not know what to do. And, here's the thing. I had spent over a decade working on my health, working on my healing, and I was feeling pretty good. Now, I shared with y'all, if you haven't seen it, y'all need to watch it, okay? It's on YouTube also. But I shared with y'all a few weeks ago about how I really, really did fasting completely wrong in every possible way. Please don't be like me. And I did it, of course, undercover because at the time I was, I had to be secret about it. I had to be undercover. Plus, I was like, I don't even know if this is going to work. It did it because I did it wrong in every possible way. So even last fall, after doing some fasting for about, I'd say a couple of months, really poorly, I'm still rebounding from that. I'm rebounding from all that stress that had happened that led into that. That's all in that other video. I won't rehash that. But But generally, other than that little blip on my radar, generally, I've had lots of healing. I'm feeling good. I know I'm eating good food choices, or at least I think I am, because I'm coaching mamas about it, right? And I believe I'm eating good food choices the right way, whatever. And it's like, but this isn't working. Or it worked, and I do feel better in many ways, but something's got to give. I will also tell y'all, now that I'm kind of on the other side of that, I'm still working on stuff, of course. Have not arrived. I will never arrive. There will always be something else to work on. But now that I'm months past, I now realize that I also was really struggling with some brain fog and just not having good mental clarity. And I didn't realize it because I have had a severe year of dealing with that back in 2019, 2020, when my iron dropped and then also my vitamin D dropped. And my vitamin D dropped so hard and low, I had to go on a prescription for a while. Best thing ever. I did not realize how brain fogged I was and how that was. So I've been in the hole on that one. And so last fall, I wasn't down deep in that hole, and that's why I didn't realize it. Because my D levels have been fine. They're not amazing, but they're fine. And so just as a side note, believe me, I get outside every day, sometimes twice a day for like a while, and I will stick with that. And of course I eat healthy foods and all that kind of stuff, but in the winter months, I will be taking my supplement for sure, even though I will be going outside. So I will be doing that, but my D levels have been good, and things. So there's no supplementation, no prescription I need, I should say. But this past fall and leading into the winter and things, I didn't realize how brain foggy I was becoming because it wasn't as bad as it had been. But now that I'm past all that, I now realize that with the neck fat going away, my brain fog also went away. Now, isn't that interesting? I just throw that in as an aside. Because it's all related. The things I did have had multiple impacts, for sure. So if I had realized that was going on, that would have also been another straw that broke a different camel's back, because I don't want brain fog. No way. I'm got enough things going on that can be distracting. I don't need any additional fog put in there whatsoever. So that would have been. So I began, as you know, reading and digging and researching and listening. I was already doing all that, but for different reasons. But then I really dove into the topic of the GLP-1 hormone, the one our body makes. And then that led straight into diving deep into insulin resistance. And I started looking at all of that stuff pretty hard last November, December, January, February, really hard. And my membership mamas know that what we did in January, February is we focused on the GLP-1 hormone that our bodies make and how we can improve that. And we started talking about insulin resistance and things. Now, I was kind of dabbling. I've shared that with y'all before. I was kind of dabbling in all that kind of things. But again, I turned 50 in January. I had this growing neck fat that was like, oh my goodness. And then I was beginning to do that, old man thing where you're kind of snoring, or you're waking yourself up because you're snoring kind of stuff, or whatever, or maybe because your spouse has kicked you because you're snoring. Well, he doesn't kick me, but like kind of elbow me because I'm snoring or whatever. And I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. Like, I'm just 50. 50 is not old. It's not. I mean, like 95 might be old, but that's okay. But not 50. So y'all remember, I started doing the mouth tape. I don't necessarily recommend that, but it can help with something. So I did the mouth tape, and I give things a go. And I didn't do the mouth tape without asking some trusted friends. And not that they steered me wrong, they didn't. But again, I don't just jump into something like that. So I did the mouth tape for at least 2 months. And obviously it helped with some stuff, but I hated it. I did not like it. I never got comfortable with it. I had to have to do it, or I had a little gap anyway. And it was more just mental. I'm like, I am not taping. And you're not supposed to tape your mouth shut anyway. That's not how that works. But it didn't really help me, and I never got comfortable with it. And finally I was like, I'm done with this. And I did that February, March, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It was like February, March, okay? So the neck fat was still there. That didn't help with my neck fat. Maybe it would have. That's kind of what I was hoping, is that, well, maybe it'll kind of like chisel me a little bit. I don't know. Maybe if I did it for a year, it might chisel me. I don't know. But I wanted to just throw that out there because I didn't want you thinking that it was the mouth taping. And believe me, I didn't do it every night either. So it definitely wasn't that. I couldn't stick with that. If you can, kudos to you. I just couldn't stick with it. I was like, well, there's got to be a different solution. And so, in about March is when I personally really started digging into the things I talk about in the food peace course. That's when I really started putting these things into place that I had been reading and hearing and kind of testing out. And I really got serious about it. Partly because of this, partly because of the snoring. And then I had a doctor's appointment in early March with just a checkup thing. And I was sorely disappointed with, like I needed the scale at the doctor's office to tell me something, but I knew that like my clothes were getting like not looking good in my clothes. I did not want to have to buy new clothes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am perfectly fine wearing the clothes that's in my closet right now. That's fine. I'm not trying to shoot for a size 4. I'm not shooting for a size 4. I don't know that I've ever been a size 4, even like when I weighed 115 the day I got married. I don't even think I was a size 4 then. This apple body don't do that, but whatever. Anyway, my point being, I'm totally fine with just being able to wear the clothes in my closet and feel comfortable in them, feel confident and comfortable in those simple clothes in my closet. It was getting to the point where that was not going to happen. And I was having to wear shapewear. Well, not having, you know what I mean. I was wearing shapewear just to put on jeans and a t-shirt, or just to be like going to the store. And it was ridiculous. And I'm like, this is not okay. And I'm not happy with it. I can tell I'm getting more fat in deposits of areas. And of course, not up here, never up there for me. But it was like, this is not okay. And I'm eating the way I thought I was supposed to be eating. And now suddenly it's not suddenly, it was over time. It was over a couple of years, of course, looking back. So that's kind of what happened. And I've shared some of that with y'all already, just in regards to the food peace course and how I started researching in, I guess, November, December, about this whole food noise term that I kept seeing popping up that I'd never heard of before. And the GLP-1 hormone, which even in my menopause certification, we didn't even talk about. I'm like, what is all this? And then when I did the food peace stuff back in March and April and realized, oh, that's food noise. I've dealt with that my whole life since I was probably 10 or 12. I had no idea. Okay. So all of that kind of plays into that. Now, with that though, I want to tell you what I think made the biggest difference. Okay. So if you've taken the food peace course, you know that it's a very simple 5-lesson course. Okay. It is not everything. It's not. It's to get you started. So it's not the be all end all. It's not going to solve all your problems. No way. It's not going to take you all the way to the finish line for what your goals are. Probably not. But that's not the intention. It's to get you started and get you on the way. Okay. And there's some things in that food peace course that specifically are addressing food noise and cravings. All right. As far as this went, I think the biggest things that made the difference for sure I'm going to say three things and then I'm going to add a fourth, and you'll see why. I think the first thing that made the biggest difference was pulling back carbs. Okay. I'm not saying it has to be forever. I'm not saying it has to be zero. I didn't say that. I said pull them back. I didn't say throw them out. But pulling back, yes, even the healthy carbs made a huge difference. And I didn't do that all at once. I didn't. That was over time. I probably a year or year and a half ago, I got rid of gluten. Like I quit eating sprouted bread and whatever, because it wasn't getting me nowhere. And it was just creating cravings in me that were really hard to control and stuff. But I was still having lots of other things. And so what I did was based on what I was reading from so many sources and about the impact that pulling back on carbs has on multiple levels. Okay. So it's like, okay, it's not just for this or that. It's for a lot of reasons, pulling them back. And so I started pulling them back because, again, I'm like, this is not working. What I've been doing, it's not working, and I'm not content. And not only was it not working, it was starting to like get worse. My weight was going up. My clothes were not fitting well. I was getting this going on. I'm like, no. So something has to give. Obviously for me, something has got to change. And so I began pulling the carbs back. And it had started already with the gluten, because I knew that wasn't working for me because it was creating cravings. But I did begin to pull back on all those other good ones that we enjoy, but that don't always work well for us in our season or at the level that I was having them. So, for example, I was having oats on occasion, not necessarily oatmeal, because I don't really care about oatmeal, but love me some granola. I do love me some oat flour and made into, a banana nut bread or a banana bread. I love it. It's delicious. It wasn't doing me any good. It wasn't helping me move forward whatsoever. Sweet potatoes and then golden potatoes. Yeah, those are super fun. Bananas, popcorn or chips on occasion, corn, organic blue corn chips that are made with the right kind of oil, whatever that is. It's the ones that start with the X. I can't remember the name of those. Y'all know how I feel about corn chips. It's like my secret love affair. It's terrible. It's not good. I have a real problem with that. So, and then, the red lentil and the chickpea pastas, those are so yummy. And I still buy them, and I don't eat them hardly ever. They're for my family because they have different metabolic makeup and needs than I do. And I've just got to face the facts if I want to move forward and get control of my weight and not gain and hopefully lose. I've got to do what I need to do. Okay. And so what had become a problem was that I was having these foods. I was having some kind of these foods every day, sometimes more than one meal a day. And then I was also on occasion having some of these foods not within a meal, having it like, I'm going to fuel my workout with a carb. No, I don't work out that hard. Not a marathon runner. I'm not a competitive bodybuilder. And I kind of bought into that, and that was a problem for me. That was a problem for me. So it was just too much. So now, over time, I've become carb careful, carb conscious. It doesn't mean I don't have some of those things on occasion, but they're going to be 20 at the most. This 80-20 is such a great principle to help guide us on many different levels. And that's one of them. I love a good sweet potato or sweet potato fries for that matter, or, a banana. I do. It's not that those things can't be included in my journey, but they've got to take a back seat, like almost in the trunk. They got to go sit in the trunk. Y'all remember those cars? What were they? You remember the cars? Oh my gosh. I remember my grandparents had a car that had a back seat that faced out, like it faced the back window. Do y'all remember those? Did you ever sit in one of those? I remember driving from Huntsville to Birmingham, which is about 2 hours, hour and a half. And because I was a kid, I had to sit in that seat facing the wrong way. You want to talk about terrible, because then you're just staring at the car in front. Anyway, that was an aside, but do y'all remember those cars? I don't know who in the world was thinking about putting a seat in the back of the car facing the wrong way. Terrible. Terrible. Anyway, all that to say, pulling them back, not out completely, but definitely putting them in their place so that it's a very small part of my journey at this point. The goal is always to be able to eat as freely and widely as possible for your particular journey. Okay? That's the goal. But we're all a little different. And so the amount of healthy, carby foods that I can eat and enjoy, even in 5 years from now, may be very different, probably will be different from you and you and you and you. It will be different because we're all a little bit different. We've got to find that sweet spot where we're maintaining our weight loss and we're happy with our weight. We're at a happy place with that, and our brain fog and our all those things. Okay, that's the goal. Remember that. And it's going to be a little bit different. There is no, okay, everybody eat this many carbs every day and you'll be hunky-dory. There is no that. You've got to find your own. And so for my season, I'm not putting this on you. I'm telling you what led to me losing my neck fat and feeling so much better. I'm just letting you know, for me, I had to pull the carbs back, like very much decrease them. And like now, this past week, within the past, 5-7 days, I've had an apple at some point. One day I had an apple. One day I had a very small banana. Did not love it. I had not had a banana in a while. And I was like, I don't know about that. And when I did these was at lunch at the end of my meal, because I'm a smart mama and I'm going to protect my blood glucose and my insulin. I've had that. I've had, oh my gosh, what was the other thing? I've had some golden potato, a little bit, but not a lot, at the end of lunch. That's just some random things off the top of my head. Okay. So it's not that I'm not having them, but I did take a break and pull back pretty hard. And of course, this idea of carbs, the issue that you've got to keep in mind, that we were talking about this in our group yesterday, Here, There, and Yonder. And I've mentioned this before. When you go out and you read books or listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos, carbs are found in those plant foods, okay? Mostly plant food. I mean, not mostly, but plant foods. I mean, sometimes we think of fats like nuts, but that is a plant food. They have carbs too. But when you go out and read and listen to other people talk about carbs, they are talking about carbs in all the food. They're not just talking about a certain subset of carbs unless they specify. And so even though I pulled back on my carbs back in the early spring, I guess, I still was getting carbs because like beets and carrots and onions and tomatoes and different things like that have carbs in them. So it wasn't like I wasn't trying to do keto, definitely not keto. I wasn't doing keto. I don't promote keto. It might work great short term for some healing. I've heard it talked about that way. But I wasn't doing that. But I was pulling my carbs back, but still having them in those foods that were better for my blood sugar. Okay? So that's the number one thing that I think made the biggest difference. And in doing that, unknowingly at the time, but now I know, I was also working on reversing some insulin resistance and weight loss resistance, because they go hand in hand. Okay? Now, the second thing that I did, along with many of you, I bet, the second thing I did was increase my protein. Okay? Because that's kind of what we've been doing, right? For a few months now. Everybody's talking about it. Dr. Lyon is talking about it. Dr. Pells has talked about it. Dr. Bickman has talked about it. Dr. Haver has even talked about it. It's talked about a lot, increasing your protein. And it's because more research and more information has come out over the past 2 or 3 years about how important that is. So I was increasing my protein for sure. Judy, keto actually is high fat, moderate protein, extremely low carb, like low carb to the point where you're looking at those non-starchies and seeing how much is there. If you go with true, like traditional keto. And so I am definitely not doing that. It's extremely high fat. And that makes sense, because if you're going to pull out the carbs, you got to have something to come from energy. And I'm going to get energy. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. But true keto is very high fat, kind of moderate on the protein, not nearly enough protein as we now know we need, especially being over 40, over 50 for sure. And then like ridiculously low carb. And I think that keto probably, from what I have read, it probably works really well as a short-term healing diet, is my guess. If you have certain health conditions. I know it's been researched heavily with epilepsy. So that's exciting. I mean, like if me or one of my kids actually was diagnosed with epilepsy, and a way to help that would be like, okay, for, life, eat keto, I would do it. I would totally do it. But the problem with keto is that it's so low carb that you can really miss out on vitamins and minerals and nutrients, for sure. No, and Bickman is, he's not keto. He has talked about that. He sees the research that seems to indicate that it's helpful for the short term and for certain people. He's not low carb. He gets really annoyed. He actually gets really annoyed when people call him low carb, because his purpose with what he has talked about is to help people reverse insulin resistance. And for that, kind of like how keto I think would work, because I don't think you should do keto forever personally, is that it is a short-term toolbox to help you reverse that insulin resistance. And then, like his new book, it shows, over time, you add back in a little more carb, and pull that fat down some. And then you have to find where that ratio is for you. Now, when I say short term, I mean like it could be a year or two, because if you are severely insulin resistant, or maybe even type 2, it's going to take a while to reverse that back. It'll take a couple of years, probably, very possibly, but you'll have victories along the way, and you can check that with your blood work and things like that. But what I did, like many of you did, is I increased my protein, and that helped, definitely. It started helping, but at the same time, because of what I was researching about the GLP-1 hormone, I began putting those veggies first. Not all my veggies, I've told y'all that, just some veggies first, and then still having some veggies with my protein. I began doing that, and so that way I'm getting those vitamins and those minerals, I'm getting the fiber for sure, I'm getting those good things, and that was helping me. Now that was what I did. I dabbled in it January, February, really got serious about it March, April. And then you know that the Food Peace course came out in May. Now, here's the missing factor for me, and I don't know that I've shared this part first. So from March and April into May, I lost 10 pounds. And I don't have a scale, but I was able to check that because I'd been to the doctor, and my dad has a scale. So I had lost 10 pounds. I could tell that things were better. I wasn't nearly as bulgy and things like that. I felt like this was getting better, but that takes time. So it's just been most recently where I'm like, oh, it's gone. It's gone. However, here's my caution to you. I did those things, and those were good things. And that was definitely the right step. However, I actually I didn't have a lot of, that's not true. I could tell my energy was low. I could tell March and April and into May, my energy was kind of lower than I wanted to be. And I wasn't exactly sure until I start, reading some more things, listening to some more things, this is where Dr. Bickman and Dr. Fung have been invaluable. I love Dr. Fung too. I don't talk about him as much, but invaluable. This is where talking to some of my really smart mod mamas and my really smart fellow coaching friends has been invaluable, okay? And the missing thing was fat. Not that I wasn't having fat before, I was, but I wasn't having probably enough fat. And I don't like counting. I don't want to count. I've never counted, but I was counting my protein because I wanted to make sure I was hitting my protein goal and getting a better understanding and feel for that. And I wasn't counting carbs because I don't want to, but I just wanted to be aware, okay, I am eating fibery good foods. Praise the Lord, raspberries and avocados are full of fiber. You don't have to have starchy carbs for fiber. Nah, girl, you don't. So I was aware of those things. I was doing my little basil seeds, which are quite lovely. I was doing some things to make sure I was getting plenty of fiber. I wasn't counting. If you like to count, go for it. Go for it. 30 to 50 grams of fiber per day is what we need to be having spread out throughout the day. Go for that if you want to do that. I just don't enjoy doing that. As far as the carb part, I wasn't counting my carbs, but I just knew I was pulling them back. And so if in the old days I was eating, say, a cup of quinoa, well, in the new days, it's going to be more like 1/4 a cup to a 1/2 cup. And that'll be the only carbier carb I have that day. That's just me. That's what I'm doing. But again, I'm not hardcore counting all of that for sure, but you can if you want to, for sure. Dr. Bickman's recommendations are in his new book. He lays them out really well with some graphs and or circle charts. Yeah, circle charts. I guess that's what you would call that. And you can look at that and you can see that over time you decrease the fat a little and you can increase the carbs a bit if you want to. Okay, that is fine to do. But I was not, I was eating a lot of lean protein during January, February, March, April. And I still do sometimes. I like chicken breast. I do. But I wasn't considering the fact that I needed the fat for satiation because I was doing a pretty good job with all my other things and the food piece was happening. So that was exciting. But my energy was low. And I wasn't exactly sure why. I didn't know what was going on there for sure. I think maybe my calories were a little low. I think I wasn't giving my body some fuel that it needed to function optimally, and things like that. And so then I realized, like I said, through listening to things and conversations, I needed to add some fat in a little bit more. And again, I'm not counting. I'm just adding some fat in and making sure that my meal has ample healthy fat. So we're talking about avocado oil, olive oil. Definitely, I usually have a serving of nuts once a day. Usually it's going to be macadamia nuts or pistachios these days. I love those too, very much. Not both, but I'll have a serving of those at some point during the day alongside my meal because I ain't snacking no more. Remember? Snacks are for toddlers and preschoolers. I don't snack. I eat my meals. So what happened is once I added that in, probably about June, I'd say about June or so, I suddenly felt better. I had more energy. And believe me, life did not slow down this summer. If you're thinking life slowed down in the summer, ha, ha, ha. No. No, it did not. June and July, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling better. My brain fog is definitely gone. And that had already gotten better for sure by about May. And that was without all the extra fat that I was adding in. And I wouldn't even say it was high fat because remember, I'm still got my protein up. I got my carbs pulled back. I'm eating my veggies and my ferments and all my things, but I just needed a little bit more fat. Not even that much, but just a little bit more fat added in and things like that. So then my energy went back up and I finally began to see muscle definition after having gone and lifted weights at the gym 2 to 3 times a week, most every week for almost 2 years. And I've shared that. I think I've shared that with y'all before. It was not until I made these changes and definitely adding that fat in, I finally started to see muscle definition that I'd been trying to achieve for so long. Even with upping my protein, which many of us did back in probably the fall. It was probably about October that I started, September, October, I started upping my protein. But at that time, I was still heavily relying on powders, not dense protein. I was having dense protein, but not at every meal. And I was relying on powders to get my protein goal. And so I segued out of that stuff probably by March, I would say. And it's not that I don't have a protein shake on occasion now. I do, but it's just regular protein powder. I do use the Moku hemp protein powder. That's my favorite one when I have it, because whey protein powder doesn't do me very well. But if you can use it, that's great. It just doesn't do me very well. And egg white protein powder. I just mix them up. I don't do that every day. I don't rely on it to help me hit my goals every day. Some days that are super busy, yes, I might have a protein shake a few times a week, maybe. And that's about it. So I just realized that as I began relying more on dense, chewable protein, and then as I started making sure I was getting those healthy fats in, that is when I began to see really good muscle definition that I've been working so hard for almost 2 years, 2 years now for sure. And I feel like I'm finally getting there. That seems like that took a long time to get there, because it's not like I needed to lose a lot of weight for the muscle definition to show up. I didn't need to lose a lot of weight for the muscle definition to show up. I wanted to lose some weight, but not that much weight. So that was kind of interesting. That's just kind of what I've seen happen. In the meantime, and I mentioned this maybe last week, in the meantime, I've learned that you have to have ample fat for the muscle protein synthesis process to work fully and well. Yes, you need amino acids from your protein, but you also have to have ample fat to go along with it. And this is something I mentioned to y'all before. I want to learn more about it. It's definitely a topic of research. It's just something to keep in mind if you are lifting weights to build healthy muscle and you're really wanting to have that component, and you would like to see some muscle definition and you would like to get those strong muscles, you've got to have the healthy fat with the protein to initiate that muscle protein synthesis and do it. Okay, you have to have both in the process of the muscle protein synthesis. 30 grams is what you need minimum to initiate that process. And I've read that in several different books. I've heard Dr. Lyon and Dr. Lehman, her mentor, speak about that in depth. That's a minimum. Okay. Now, I know we've talked about protein here, and I know you're thinking that's really hard to get it in. It's something to work up towards. Okay. It is something to work up towards, and you definitely want to prioritize that for sure. And then with that, I just want to throw this out there, since I'm talking about muscle definition. Simply upping your protein isn't enough. You have to work your muscles also. And I've heard Dr. Bateman has even delved into that a little bit for sure. I don't remember when I heard him talk about that just in the past few weeks, and it may have been on a coaching call. I can't remember now, but you have, and Dr. Lyon talks about this. You can't simply up your protein and that's the end of the story. You must also work those muscles. They have to be worked. And that's going to come from resistance training. It can be weightlifting. It can also be resistant bands. Those are a great way to do it. There are some, what do you call that? It's not body weight, but like where you don't have a tool. There are some exercises you can do, like push-ups is a good one. Wall push-ups can help with arms. You can do that. Resistance, I guess that's just resistance, but body weight resistant exercises, squats, sitting, getting up and down out of a chair over and over again to exhaustion kind of thing. You can do some things without tools. You can, but they do have to go hand in hand. So what I don't want to see for you and me is I don't want to see us simply upping our protein to reach a 30-gram goal minimum, but not also exercising those muscles. I think starting with the protein is a great option. I think that's probably the wisest thing to do first if you aren't resistant training at all, is starting with the food. Get your food right. We talked about that, I think, last week. Get that food right, then start adding in that resistant training. And if it's with 5 pounds, it's with 5 pounds. If it's with the lightest exercise band, so be it. That's okay. You just have to start and build up. So it's like two sides of the coin. They have to go hand in hand. They really do it. You can't just, and this gets back to where, before I started making these changes with having the dense protein most of the time, 80-20, okay? I might have a protein shake on occasion because I like them and they're convenient and I like getting in my kefir that way. But 80-20, that's where a year ago or so, when I began upping my protein, it still didn't, well, and 2 years ago, I began resistant training. 2 years ago, I began lifting weights at the gym, pretty heavy, pretty hard, and not really getting the muscle definition and not really growing my muscles, particularly, because I wasn't fueling well. So they've got to go hand in hand. And then when I began increasing my protein later fall and then into this year, that did begin to help. But once I switched to dense protein most of the time and increasing my healthy fats, that is where it finally started all snapping into place. And then that was one benefit. Losing the net fat was the other, like, oh, thank goodness gracious me, oh my, thank goodness for that. All those things working together. And then again, the effects have been in the tummy. Praise the Lord. Thank goodness that has gotten better. And knowing that I'm supporting my insulin well and that I'm not overworking it, being able to just eat 3 meals a day and be happy and content and nourished and fulfilled and not have food noise, not have cravings. I don't need a snack, don't want a snack. Not initiating an insulin response every 3 hours because I'm not doing that. I'm not eating or whatever. That has been just like a domino effect. That's what I want for you. That is what I want for you as well. And I think it really starts, I do think it starts with the food piece course. And I know that sounds like a sales pitch, but I tried to price it super low because I want as many people to have it as possible and go through that. I also want to remind you with that, before I wrap up here, when I started doing those food piece things myself, I could tell pretty quickly that things were improving just with my, like not having food noise and having control and things like that. But on the scale, clothing sizes, clothing fit, neck fat, that took time. It's not going to happen in a week or 2 or 3. It may take a couple of months. It may take 4 or 5 months. Here we are, it's October. Let's see, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Okay, it took me 6 months at least before I realized, oh, that bulgy thing there, it's gone away or mostly gone away. It takes time, okay? You got to give it time. You got to be consistent and those kinds of things. But even with that food piece course, pretty quickly, you'll realize, whoa, I'm in control of my food. It's not controlling me. My food is no longer controlling my thoughts and my actions and my day. That's huge. And that may not exactly result in a scale loss tomorrow, but it will eventually because of all these other things that are being triggered and happening and falling into place. But you got to stick with it. You got to stick with it. Here I am 6 months or so after implementing my own stuff I'm telling you about. And I still would like to lose a little bit in the middle because I'm an apple. Y'all know that. And I would like to lose a little bit in the middle, but I've lost some. and my clothes are fitting better, but I'm not done yet. Not done yet. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep implementing and all those kinds of things. Okay. So, if you have an 8 to 10 hour window, you'll be eating. No, I won't. But see, that's where that gets into a different topic of fasting and how if you're going to implement that. If I have a 10-hour window, then that might look like I don't know, eating at what, 8 a.m. What is that? Maybe every 5 hours, I think. If you want to get in 3 meals, but the 3 meals don't necessarily have to be equal in size. You might want to hit that protein goal, but you may want to pull back on some other things, possibly in that middle meal. The middle meal is the one that I've heard Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talk specifically about, where if you're aiming for 3 meals a day, that middle meal can be pulled back some because you really want to hit those target goals at your first meal of the day and your last meal of the day. Now, if you're having a day where you're going to fast and you're going to only have 2 meals, which I talked about before, I don't recommend you do that every day, not as a woman. Men can do that. Women, it's not so good long term to do that. Short term can work, long term, not so much. And that's why Dr. Mindy talks about varying what you're doing too. We're just different. Y'all know that. Men and women are different. Some people don't know that, but they are. But if you're having just 2 meals a day and you want to have a 10-hour window, that's going to expand it out a bit. So to vary that, that's okay. But those 2 meals a day, if you're only doing 2, you're probably going to hit or you should hit your target goals for your protein, for your fat, for your fiber in those 2 meals. If you're having 3 meals a day in a 10 to 12 hour window, perhaps, possibly, then that middle meal can be smaller. It's okay to do that. You'd still want to try to aim for that protein to be around 30 or close to 30, but I know some of you have higher protein goals. And so, but just hitting that 30, but then pulling back on some other things, that's okay to do. That actually works well. We want to make sure that our first meal, whenever that is, and our last meal or the second meal are really spot on and setting ourselves up well, because that last meal, whether it's meal number 2 or 3, that last meal is going to set us up for a beautiful night's sleep, a beautiful, helping our body have a beautiful, like fasting glucose in the morning, fasting insulin in the morning. That's what we're shooting for. So that's how you're going to vary it. So if you are someone who is using the tool of fasting for some reason, then true, on those days that you're employing fasting, whether it's with 2 meals or 1 meal a day, you are not going to hit your daily protein goal. But you'll be doing some other great things with the fasting if it's a good season and reason and all those things for you. But on those days, you will not hit the fiber. You probably won't hit the fiber and the protein goal on those fasting days. But on the days where you are having your 3 meals and you're not exactly fasting, you're just doing time restricted eating, then you should be able to hit those goals and get at least super very close. And that's why I would say, that's why Dr. Mindy would say, don't fast the same way every day. And I mentioned that Dr. Haver in her Galveston diet book, and there was someone else. I can't remember who it was, but there's another doctor I've read that's like a menopause expert. That's why they may suggest just have 1 or 2 fasting days a week of some sort, not every day, because you do want to hit those protein goals for sure. And most women cannot eat 50, 60 grams of protein in 2 meals a day. That's really difficult. That's really difficult to hit 60 grams of protein in a meal. So that's how you would kind of negotiate that. So yeah, you'd have to make that decision for yourself about what you're working on, what you need. But I would say generally a couple of days a week of some type of fasting is probably a wonderful tool for many if it's a good season and you're not in stress. We talked about all that stuff when I did it the wrong way. And most of the time aiming for 3 meals, but let that middle meal be lighter. For me, that's where I might have my protein shake. If I'm gonna have one, if I'm gonna have a protein shake, I'll have it in the middle meal, and that works a lot better. And that is a lighter to me, or it can be a lighter type of meal, and that's a good fit for it for me. I don't do that every day, but on occasion I might do that. All right, ladies, I need to go. I'm going to hydrate, and then I'm going to be going live in my Foxy Foundations group. We are on week 6 of 10, so we've reached the halfway mark in that group. And for those of you who are not in there, but you're interested in it, then enrollment for that next session will open on December 9th. There will be an early bird. Y'all remember last time I had to close enrollment after the early bird. I don't think that'll happen again. I can't imagine, but I did. So just letting you know, December 9th is going to be the early bird for this next Foxy Foundation. And of course, we're not going to start that until like after the new year, like probably the second week of January is when we'll get started. So that's just a little heads up. All right, ladies, I appreciate y'all. I hope that was helpful. I kind of covered a lot of different things. But I hope that was helpful to you. And as always, if you have questions about the Food Peace course, either because you're interested or you're going through it, if you have questions about the Food Peace course or anything like that, please feel free to post it here in this group. And me or somebody will be able to help you out, I'm sure. All right, bye-bye, ladies.